In remembrance of the brave healthcare workers and journalists who have lost their lives in the current conflict, and in solidarity with those who are still under siege and attack in Gaza, health workers for Palestine are today hosting vigils in Johannesburg and Cape Town. And these vigils aim to draw attention to the dire situation faced by health workers and journalists in Gaza and emphasize the humanitarian catastrophe unfolding. Health workers for Palestine say they choose to add their voices in demanding an end to the ongoing violence and human rights violations. According to the World Health Organization, more than 30 health facilities in Gaza, including hospitals, have been damaged, with only few still operational. And to talk about this, I'm being joined live on the news by Dr. Samuel El-Burai, who is a pediatrician. Good afternoon from here. Glad to have you join me.
Hi, thank you for having me. Thanks for inviting me to talk.
All right. Now, what's the motivation for this vigil for health workers and also journalists who were killed in Gaza?
I think the motivation is a few. It stems essentially from this feeling of shock and horror and complete and utter disbelief in what's happening around us. We've got laws to protect healthcare workers. We've got laws to protect journalists. And what we're seeing is an unprecedented and also precedented attack on these laws and on people. So we are, as healthcare workers for Palestine, South Africa, we're simply adding our voice to the international vigils that are happening. The international vigils are organized by healthcare workers for Palestine, and we're adding our voices with them to ask for a permanent ceasefire, to ask for unrestricted access to humanitarian aid and a diplomatic solution for lasting peace on both sides. I think as a healthcare worker, just sitting and witnessing the horrors unfold around us, hearing stories from people on the floor, hearing the stories of journalists, hearing what healthcare workers have to deal with in Palestine, you can't imagine being in that position. You can't imagine having to deal with that and having to witness such extreme loss of life and such extreme trauma, and then also have to worry about your own family and worry about your own safety. And it just seems relentless, and it doesn't seem to stop, no matter the calls for peace around the world and the calls for a ceasefire around the world. It just doesn't seem to end. And so I think that's essentially the motivating factor behind organizing these vigils. It's a little advocacy space and a space for healthcare workers and for journalists who've died. We've just seen so much, and we want to add our voices to the international community.
Okay, now in what ways do you think the vigil can honor the memory and even sacrifice of fallen health workers and journalists?
So I think in two ways. So I think the vigil is a space for advocacy for the healthcare workers. We're saying, and journalists, we're saying these people have names, they have lives, they have families to worry about. These are not just random names, these are human beings. So I think it brings advocacy to that space. I think it basically also looks at what's going on in general, the attacks on journalists and on healthcare workers in terms of violation of Geneva Conventions and so on. I think the second thing, the way it helps, is that we've got associated advocacy inventions with that. So, for example, the vigil that's happening in Johannesburg, money that's raised will go to funding an ambulance in Gaza. And the one in Cape Town, we're asking people to bring non-perishable items and to bring water, bottled water, so that we can give it to Gift of the Givers and support local South African organizations through Gift of the Givers. So in that way, we hope to honor the memory and the lives of the journalists and of the healthcare workers killed, not only by giving space and by naming them, but also to giving back to the communities that they serve and that we serve. And just to say, these are people who are heroes. These are people who have given up their lives to protect patients and to protect the story. And they've been not only murdered, they've been injured, and they've also been captured. So we're hoping, so that's essentially what our vigil hopes to bring about, and to just bring about that this is a humanitarian issue. These are people. This is a human issue.
All right. Thank you so much for your time on the news. Dr. Samuel El-Burai, pediatrician. Thank you once again.
Thank you very much.